I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022 at 6 p.m. This is the Board of Commissioners workshop meeting. Welcome, everybody. Clerk, will you please do the roll call?
Madam Mayor, the mayor, vice mayor, the Mayor Hendricks won't be here tonight, and Commissioner Andrews will not be here tonight, but we have a quorum. I'm gonna call the roll. Vice Mayor Price,
Here.
Commissioner Hodges,
Here.
Commissioner Hudson,
Here.
Next is public comment. Anybody in the audience who'd like to make a 3-minute public comment, please come to the podium and state your name and address, as long as it's not on the agenda tonight. Okay, thank you. First topic for discussion is City Clerk, our question and answer session for the referendum and charter amendments for the March 15 election.
yes, for March the 15th, 2022 municipal election. And I do want to say that the supervisor of elections, for this starting now with the municipal elections, we have 2 polling places, but it's consolidated for just the municipal elections held in March will be just here from 7 o'clock a.m. to 7 p.m. And we have one referendum on the ballot, and we have 3 charter amendments, and also there'll be a voting for a commissioner for District 1 and a commissioner for District 2. And the commissioner for District 1 is the candidates is Helen Happy Price, which is the incumbent, and David Tagliarini. And then for Commissioner District 2 is Charles Chuck Dillon and Ray Kerr. Now I'm going to read each of the questions that's on the ballot, and then I'll ask and see if anybody would like to make comment or ask any questions after each one. The referendum question that is on the ballot, the title is Authorized the Sale of Real Property Located at 13222 3rd Street East. The question reads, the city proposes to sell the real property consisting of a vacant residential lot located at 13222 3rd Street East for an amount equal to or in excess of its fair market value. This is proposed to recoup accumulating fines and maintenance costs and avoid future insurance premiums required to prevent liability for the city. Shall this sale be provided? Has anyone got questions or comments?
Let me just make a comment here to anyone watching that this is a piece of property that the city acquired through, I guess, the lien process. And it's a residential lot. It's not really fit to make a park out of it or anything. And it's costing us money to maintain it. So we might as well turn it into someone can build a nice little house on it and we'll get some taxes.
There you go. Sounds good.
Yeah.
The first charter amendment on the ballot, City of Madeira Beach #1 charter amendment is elector and resident requirement for candidates seeking the office of mayor or district commissioner. The question reads, this charter amendment would amend subparagraph A of section 3.3 of the charter to provide that candidates seeking the office of mayor or district commissioner be an elector and resident of the city of Madeira Beach, Florida, 1 year prior to the date of said application. Should the charter be amended, yes or no? The currently in the city charter, you have to be a resident 2 years before the election and a registered voter 2 years before the election when you make application. So this changes it to 1 year if it should pass. If anyone's got any questions or comments, I'll move on to number 2. City of Madeira Beach #2 charter amendment. Candidate petition forms requirement for candidates seeking the office of mayor or district commissioner. The question reads, this charter amendment would amend subparagraph C of section 3.3 of the charter to provide that candidates seeking the office of mayor or district commissioner shall submit 25 candidate petition forms signed by qualified voters of the city of Madeira Beach, Florida, and to delete qualifying petition fee requirement. Should the charter be amended? Yes or no? What's currently in the charter is you get 100 petitions signed or at least 50 and pay a $50 qualifying petition fee. So this charter amendment, if it should pass, lowers the 100 to 25. That would be it, no other option. And it eliminates the $50 petition fee. Charter amendment, anybody got any questions or comments? Moving on.
Only because this is almost the last chance we're going to get to talk about this.
Yes.
Those last two charter amendments are on the ballot because the commission thought it would be easier for people to run for public office if it weren't so difficult at the outset. Interesting, this morning I was sitting next to a mayor at the Big C meeting and he said, we only need 10 signatures. And somebody else said, we don't need any. So I think we had kind of an onerous process there. I'd like to see more people throw their hat into the ring.
Yes. Okay, moving on to number 3, City of Madeira Beach, number 3 Charter Amendment. Election held in March each year for the purpose of electing successors for elective offices. The question reads, this charter amendment would amend subparagraph A of section 3.4 of the charter to provide that all elections shall be held in the city on the first Tuesday after the second Monday in March, with the exception of the presidential preference primary election held every 4 years of each year for the purpose of electing successors to elective offices to meet the requirements of the Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections. Should the charter be amended? Yes or no? The current charter is that the elections are held the second Tuesday in every March, if we should have an election. And this charter amendment, whether or not it's passed, we have to abide by what the Supervisor of Elections does because they do our elections, they canvass our elections, and theirs are different. So this will change it to the first Tuesday after the second Monday in March so that it agrees and there's no conflict there in the language in the charter. If anybody has any questions or comments, I turn it back over to you, Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the building safety inspections for condos and hotels. I know
Good.
Commissioner Hudson was championing this, but I don't know who wants to talk about this from our packet.
I like what was in the packet. It had a lot of good information. But this was about after the accident with the Surfside building, whether the city of Madeira Beach should have some regulations on how often large buildings need to be inspected and that the city gets a record of that. And that was the intent. Looking at this, a little disappointed in that they're more worried about the financial part of it. How do we get boards to set aside enough money to pay for any repairs, and things like that? And there wasn't much detail on what the inspection should include other than it had 2 parts. And the first one was basically, is the building structurally safe? And I don't know if that's sufficient or if we need something more than that.
And to add, Commissioner and Vice Mayor and Commissioner Hodges, the Senate bill, and there's a copy obviously in the information that we all have, really provides for the milestone inspection. So currently after year 30 in the life of a structure, and then every 10 years thereafter. We can certainly create, if the commission so chooses, we can create our own. I think my recommendation, and likely Mr. Trask's as well, would be to wait for the bill that the legislature is proposing And then we can make certain adjustments to that. We can require inspections of a different, possibly of a different type, but certainly in the current legislation as it has been proposed, these milestone inspections would be, again, when a building reaches 30 years of age, multifamily structure at least 3 stories tall, and at least a certain square footage. So there's benefits to it. There's a couple of drawbacks. Yeah, the cost, as Commissioner Hudson stated, to the property owners could be quite onerous. However, that's part of living in a high rise, is that, or any structure really, is the maintenance of it. So, and it's really to ensure the safety of the structure. You'd have a qualified engineer that would perform those inspections. And there's different phases, and the bill does allow for local enforcement. So the city could enforce the provisions that would incorporate, the timeliness and or penalties of the inspections if they're not performed in accordance with the statute. So we can, proceed in a variety of ways. At this point, my suggestion would be to wait to see what the state comes up, but we definitely, could take our own action, which is, and when I spoke with the mayor who's not here, his suggestion was we can act first and then possibly require a shorter milestone inspection. So approximately at 20 years and then every 10 years thereafter, for example. So those are
5.
really, yeah, it would be a lot. But again, to ensure the structural integrity, we do have structures that are approaching 50 years and some a little bit older. I think our tallest structures are not quite that age, but I think we have some that were built in the 70s.
Yep.
So they are approaching 50 years. So again, just to avoid any future issues, this, I think, good step that the legislature is taking, perhaps not going completely as cities would like for them to go. But certainly happy to take any direction that you would like for us to do.
The only thing I don't like about this is it says right in here that the commission shall develop the comprehensive structural and life safety standards, blah, 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 by the end of this year. So already we're not going to have anything developed until December 31st of this year.
Right. Right.
So I hate to, well, we could certainly pass something, and I don't know how detailed we'd have to, I guess our planning commission's gonna have to get involved and draft something up.
I understand that the condos do need to be investigated or checked out every so often. Like the city manager said, that we could do like a early investigation, I'm assuming, to go in and check them to see what they want to do and then go back to the 10-year. But I need to find out something. Is this a 10-year? Everyone knows that it's investigated in 10 years, okay? Do they set it for a certain date, or is it something that within the 10 years they have to come up with the inspection itself?
But my understanding is within the 10
Within the
years.
10?
So, right. No, not to exceed 10 years.
Okay. And well, of course, this is Miami. It's a little different here than it is in Miami.
Sure.
So, I just think that I read through this and it didn't really make a lot of sense to me, to be honest with you. But I do understand that this has to be inspected, and being the commissioners, it's up to the commissioners then to make the decision. And I would go for it, but I'm not concerned. I'm not crazy about this one here. There's just too many things in it that don't affect us. Like they talked about the, in fact, there was one here I saw where they talked about the salt water being used in fixing up some of these condos. I don't think we have anything like that here.
Right. No, and I think you're referring to the news article that's in the packet.
Yes.
We're included, and there's also the proposed bill. that
Okay.
has not exactly the same details that are in the article. So the article was really just for informational
Okay. all right,
purposes.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
the actual bill would be applicable statewide and really setting the standards, the guidelines that all properties would over at least 3 stories would need to follow, likely effective July 1 of this year. It would set these dates, X number of years that you would need to have what the state is terming a milestone inspection, again, to ensure that if there are any repairs that need to be completed. And then the bill further outlines how you proceed if there are repairs that need to be made, and they include some phases as to how to do that. In the article, the issue with who is to pay for the costs, well, likely those costs will be
Condos.
borne by the condo owners
Yeah.
and or the condo association or homeowners association. However, some of those repairs could be substantial, and that's a concern that some of the legislators have received from some of these condo boards. Well, if we don't have $10 million to make these repairs, what do we do? And so that's a concern that's been expressed, but and it's a valid concern, but really, how do you solve that is a different question. This is simply stating that to avoid any future collapses, which is the worst thing that could happen, then this is the process to begin to alleviate that. And as I said earlier, we can certainly create, as long as we don't contradict state law, we can create our own, unless Mr. Trask tells us otherwise, we could create our own that could shorten the time frame. Certainly, I wouldn't propose lengthening the time frame between inspections, but and we would not be involved in the remediation, meaning the cost of the repairs. That's not wise, and that would not be for us because we don't go and make repairs on private property unless, of course, we're ordered by court to do so, and whatever circumstances those may arise, but typically we do not. So it's the responsibility of the property owners. We're simply providing regulation and a regulatory process whereby to ensure the safety of structures over a period of time.
If you look on page 14 of the 210 and side down.
Yep.
It says if the building is located within 3 miles of this coastline as defined by this code, must have a milestone inspection performed by December 31st of the year in which the building reaches 20 years of age. So our first one would be if any building less than 20 years, they're due in that year. And then it has to be, we would issue a certificate of occupancy once that was provided, I believe. And then every 7 years thereafter, it would have to be inspected. So for Madeira Beach, it'd be 20 years and 7 years, and they would do the inspection in that year. So they would have a year to do it. But I guess, yeah, I would like to have something from the building department or from the planning commission that says, this kind of says you ask one question, is the building structurally safe? And I don't know if that's enough, or if we need somebody, if we need to have a list of questions that the inspector has to approve or whatever, just for
Right.
our own sakes. So yeah, I don't think we can do anything now, and I think we want to wait till this is done. But yeah, I didn't know. I knew there was something out there, but I didn't have information on it. And this is
Right, yeah,
good.
upon research, this is what we found, and it's the only one currently proposed at the legislature.
And they go into a lot of detail about who's qualified to give the inspection and all that good stuff. And we're gonna have to, I mean, all the condos are on notice now that this bill is going through the state. I don't know if we want to like jump ahead and make them get inspected before the state requires it because they haven't budgeted for it. And things of that nature. I can imagine that inspection is not cheap. I mean,
No,
I
they were
mean-
talking costs in here. I think they were talking like $20,000 or $30,000.
Right.
And then whatever the remediation of the,
yeah.
problem.
So are we just gonna let the state take over and then we'll discuss if we wanted?
Yeah, and we will bring it
Shorter.
back for once it's the state adopts it or whatever version they adopt, we'll certainly bring it back and come up with anything that you would want us to add.
Okay. Any
And,
public comment on this?
Mr. Trask,
Oh.
do you have any direction?
So my thoughts on it are, it would be most beneficial for the city to see what statute is going to be adopted. There may be changes before it's actually adopted. There is no House Bill companion that we're aware of, but it's moving very, very quickly. And it looks like from everything I've seen, every vote taken was unanimous for this version of the Senate bill at least. We'll know in about 3 or 4 more weeks, what's happening with it. My belief is that it will probably pass. Once it passes, then we'll know exactly what is happening with it. It looks like it will become adopted as of July 1st. So that's fairly quickly. First inspections would be before December 31st, 2024. And then the commission is going to make their rules before the end of the year too. That may be very, very helpful. If you don't want to wait, I really think that it's necessary for you to talk to your building official, have him give you some recommendations as to what he would suggest based upon his experience, instead of us just trying to shoot from the hip as to what we think would be best. I'm sure that your building official will have a lot of thoughts on that. But I agree with the commissioner. I think that here, the way the law is currently written, it'll be every 20 years and then 7-year inspections thereafter, because you're all within 3 miles of the coastline.
Yep.
So, which is really, really good.
Yep, that's pretty good.
Those are my thoughts.
Yep, thanks.
Okay. And no comment from the public? All right, we'll move on to a discussion about the award of landscape services from Mr. Hatch.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. What you guys have in front of you is results from an RFP that we posted for mowing and lawn maintenance services for the city center complex. So that's everything from Municipal Drive to our left, all the way down to the water at the rec center. So every piece of green, with the exception of the 3 ball fields, all inclusive. So bushes, everything, grass, all that stuff. We did put this out for bid in 2019. We had a contract that lasted about 1.5 years. About halfway through the pandemic, their company went through a lot of issues and they stopped showing up. We eventually are taking it over as we can with our limited staff and limited equipment. So we put it out for RFP. It was almost lined up with the conclusion of this contract. Anyway, we received 2 bids for this. One of them for $33,600 annually, and the other one for $37,000, $596 annually. In comparison, the bid we had before was $18,864. But the second bid we received that year was $50,000. So we're kind of in the middle of those two in 2019. As it stands now, we have enough. If we were to start on April 1st with this bid, we have enough budgeted remaining in the budget that we've paid out to not have to make any sort of budget amendment to get us to next fiscal year. It just, I guess, worked out that way, if that's what we want to call it. We would for FY 23, 24, and 25 have to budget for this.
Right.
But I do believe, based on the packet they turned in, the background that we've looked on them, they do have Pasco County and Hernando County, and they do the medians. I can't remember, one of the cities north of us. I believe it Indian Rocks or Indian Shores. But they do have an extensive municipality background. So we believe that they will do a much better job. And they were very thorough in their packet, very thorough in their questions and everything else that we had going on out here. So essentially, I was looking forward to approve the award of the bid to Natural Designs Landscaping for $33,600 annually. And then there are additional opportunities for fertilizing and other things, whether it's the palm trees or the grass or weeds and all that, that we can discuss with them. And that was something I was going to worry about when we got to the budget period. But at this point, we want to get them on as soon as possible, get everything shaped up, clean cut and looking good, and back to where we want it to be. So Just wanted to see if y'all had any questions or thoughts or direction on this, but we would definitely like to enter into negotiations with them on the contract that was within that and get this going for the next 3.5 years.
The company that we have now doing the pocket parks, this is a different company?
They did not bid, but when
Okay.
they did bid in 2019, and
Okay.
they were the one that came in at 50,000.
Okay, got it.
So
All right, thank
um,
you.
I will say that the 33,000 doesn't scare me. I thought it was going to come in. I can say this now. I thought it was going to come in much higher with inflation and, you know, the minimum wage and all that stuff. So 33,000, I think is somewhat on par to what we might have seen, you know, in that range. So.
Jay, I know in the past, of course, everything looks beautiful anyway, but I had a couple calls probably about a year ago
Mhm.
where Rock Park wasn't being done. I do see now that you have Rock Park listed with the rec center. So as far as you're concerned, Rock Park is being included in this price.
This was included. So the city has two separate contracts. One is with Floriculture that does all the pocket parks and some other minor things. And then our contract is completely separate. So the company that was doing it, we were having a lot of issues not showing up. You know, they couldn't keep people hired, as they said, and which we all understand now.
Yep.
And then I would have, you know, myself or somebody else get on the mower, you know, as often as we could to try to keep up. And it really, especially in the summer, it's tough to keep up. But this is strictly for this entire property. So this is
Okay.
mainly for Rock Park. This doesn't include the pocket parks. And then our goal is the intent of this, it was written, it's going to end on a fiscal year. Normally it was running like half and half.
Mhm.
So the intent of this is FY25 in October. October 1 will be September 31st will be the last day. So we'll be able to start the new year with a new contract, have that price in the budget, plan ahead. And then the other contract, I believe, ends around the same time. So the goal is to bid them together, have one company doing everything. That was how it initially started, but there was an issue and we got away from it, and it has continually become a catch up.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'd like to see some sort of weed prevention happening before,
Of course.
because there is some grass issues with Rock Park
Mhm.
that I've seen. And what about the dog park? I happened to look at that today. Is that just never going to have grass because it's constantly being used?
Yes,
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
that's part of
I was
it. I mean,
surprised today
it's-
how many people were out there. in the
it's
middle
used
of-
every day since I've been here, other than the few rainy days. Even the days that were in the upper 40s in the morning and breezy. That is the most used dog park I've ever seen in 28 years in local government in 4 cities. It is used every day, morning, even, I know it's when it's warm during the day, likely that you don't see too many out there, but that's why the grass is deteriorated and essentially you have a dirt dog park now.
Right.
We could close it. Jay and I discussed this a few weeks ago. We would have to close it at least for probably a month to either reseed it. We might be a little too late to reseed it. We could resod it. But we believe the
It's
best,
never good.
but then it'll wear back down as
Right.
it's used now. Likely the usage will likely decrease a little bit as certainly during the day as it warms up and gets more humid, but there'll be people using it in the mornings and in the evenings. It's a very popular place. We need another one or a much larger one. And we've discussed about eventually possibly considering to put artificial turf that can, the only maintenance you have on that is really just to kind of keep it a little bit clean, but will not wear down obviously as quickly as grass or sod. But it is more expensive initially. It's a capital cost to do that. And so just some options, but we need to do
Mulch or
something.
I don't know, is that,
Mulch is a DEP issue because we have the 2 drainage ponds on both sides of it.
okay,
And it really, with the exception of the mud pit that's in the middle of the dog park itself is probably the highest spot out there. So it drains into both those ditches and onto the ball field. So the mulch would migrate. That's what. I was looking
Oh,
for.
yeah.
Yeah. So, when the budget season, which is very soon approaches, gonna throw a number out there, and we've got the fundraising group that's going forward with that. We did receive some donation already from the city clerk, and so getting us well on our way. But so yeah, we're
And we're also looking, I mean, we're also looking for grants for
Yes.
the dog park. I've written to a couple of companies to marketing or advertising where if, I mean, we'd bring it back to the commission with the possibility of allowing for marketing in exchange for donations specifically for the dog, for either the capital or maintenance of the park itself. So companies like PetSmart, Petco, et cetera.
Right. So the kind of unofficial dog park on the water where our mulch,
Bicentennial Park?
Bicentennial Park, is that ours? Is that the city's?
No, that is a county
That's a
we
county.
just renewed, so it's a school board property.
or school board, I'm sorry, right? Pinellas
Okay.
County
So
School
the
Board.
school board owns the waterfront property, and they own the soccer, that field there.
Right.
The road itself is DOT. So that's a DOT right away, because that's where the bridge used to
That
be.
little 2-track,
Yes.
you mean?
Yeah, the dirt road.
Fronted, okay, yeah.
We have an agreement with them that if we were to try to make an improvement, so that they did potentially a second dog park, we would have to put that request through the school board. So we have an agreement with them. We just can't do anything to the property without their permission. So that's it. It's potential.
Maybe we,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a large enough piece of property and with some shade and stuff, you could even have a large dog area and a small dog area, because out here it's really small, I think, for a dog park. But
Oh, it is.
okay.
It's really kind of a dog park for small dogs
So we're
in reality.
basically on this somewhat, right? As far as,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've got,
I would
there's
love
actually a
to see-
local business too that it wants to lead up the fundraising for this. So there's,
Oh, good.
it's moving in the background
okay,
slowly, but it's
okay.
moving.
I'd love to see Bicentennial Park as a
Mhm, As a secondary or
second, yeah, second.
Another
place
dog
and just
park.
Some,
look into that.
what is it? Put up fencing is probably the some doggy jungle gyms or whatever we have out there. I mean, it just seems like some fun stuff, so. All right,
And
Okay.
just to add, the mowing, weeding agreement, as Jay said, is a 3-year contract, although a little bit more than 3 years because it includes the current fiscal year, as he stated. So
okay.
with 2 1-year renewable options,
So it could run through 2027.
right? 5 years total in addition to the current 7 months left in the year. No,
Well, I'm okay with it. I mean, it looks like
5
you did
months.
everything you were supposed to do and we're not taking a big budget hit, so thank you.
Alrighty.
Anybody else?
All right, thank you.
we would bring back an agreement at the March 9th
Okay.
commission meeting.
That makes sense.
Next item was something I requested to put on the agenda which is the performance appraisal forms. And we have lots of them in our packet. I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at them. They're quite similar. And they're pretty lengthy. But I didn't know how we kind of wanted to proceed. Did we want to read through these and pick out the questions we thought were the most important and then have a document created from it? Or, I mean, when I looked at this, okay, number one, I don't like the one size fits all for the clerk, the attorney, the director of finance, and our city manager. Although the city manager ones were a little bit different in the packets, but they all contain kind of the same criteria, I noticed. So, I mean, do we want to run through these? Not tonight, I mean, but as a group and when all 5 of us get here. I know Doug will have something to say and the mayor will have something to say, but pick out, circle some of the questions that we think are the most important. And I'd like a short, I think 1 page is unrealistic, but maybe a 3-page
Mhm.
performance appraisal for all of the charter officers. And I think they need to be different. Like,
I thought the Tarpon Springs ones were pretty long, and I like the Oldsmar and the ICMA and the Oklawaha.
Yeah. Oklawaha. County, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, that was the one that I kind of liked the format of. I like the scale 1 to 5 better than a 1, 2, 3. And just a place for comments. And so we're just going to have to determine what's important to us to rate these individuals.
And I would add, if you look, the Tarpon Springs tend to grab some of the requirements listed in their charter for each of the charter positions, which is fairly logical. I've seen
Right.
other cities do that. But it is difficult you can make them a little bit more concise, but yeah, I agree. It might be quite difficult to put them into one page, maybe 2.
Well, I did say I'll go up to 3, but like, I'm not rating my city attorney on his professional, I mean, he's a professional. I don't need to try to figure that out. I think that some things are a little too minutia on some of these.
Yeah,
And they don't-
maybe organizational relationships as well. I always thought that was, how well do you get along
Yeah.
with others? I mean, important to some, not to others.
And do you anticipate some problems and maybe come with solutions? That's important, I think, to any high-level position like the 5 we're talking about. And, I don't care if Andrew has that much interaction with the public, frankly.
Public relations, I
I
think
mean, he's got everything on the website.
he's the face of the city.
He's like,
right?
yeah, well, financially, yeah, but I don't. If I feel like any of these, our constitutional officers are not professional or not have good relationships with our people, they're gonna hear about it anyway. So,
Yeah, and I was nervous about, the city manager spends so much time dealing with the city staff and how
yeah. how
their
do we-
interaction is so important. And how do we get feedback on that? We can talk to some of the people in the city staff, but it's like, I'm not sure that I want to be the one that judging that.
Right, we're not here day to day
Mhm.
to see that, so,
So anything that we don't see ourselves, I find it hard to say that we should be judging. But we're the boss, so we should be the one that does the evaluation. So that's where I'm having trouble, is how do we walk that line?
well, I think we need to move forward with this because we're eventually gonna do this for every position in this city, is my hope. So everybody knows what's expected of them, they know what's on their reviews. And that's why some people are not, these across the board raises, I'll say it again, don't do us any good, in my opinion. I think good employees need to be rewarded and mediocre employees shouldn't as much, maybe, but I'm happy to go through there and like pick out my favorites. And maybe if we each do that and bring it back up,
I
or
like that.
categories
Yeah,
even,
that's
just
what
like
I was just gonna suggest, that's what
categories.
other
yeah.
cities have done, is determine which categories are you deem to be important to you, and then you kind of work between the 5 of you as to maybe your top 5 or
Right.
however many you want.
And Clara, why don't I get with you and we'll make a little score sheet to make so that we're all talking about the same thing when we bring this up again. And we'll give everyone some time to read through, and I wouldn't mind doing that with you. And then we'll have something for the next, maybe not the next workshop, but we'll have something to put in everyone's mailbox. Because obviously we want the mayor's input and Doug's,
Correct.
Commissioner Andrews' input as well. So not that we're making any big decisions here, but let's do that. I'll get with you.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Have to do. And thank you for those samples. That was a really good, because you saw what our Madeira Beach one looked like. Didn't even, it was a very, very generic. I struggled with, doing the last city manager performance appraisal with that existing.
Right, and
form. So,
because that was created for, for all employees.
Yeah,
And it's difficult to use the same one for as you're
Right.
really going, that's why we're going through this exercise.
And we're not gonna create them all here. We're just working with the ones that we rate, but I think HR needs to start looking at the job descriptions and creating realistic rating systems so that our directors and our managers can give good feedback, give somebody an opportunity to improve. I mean, I don't know if this is all going on every year, to be honest with you. I
think
don't
we've-
hear about it.
No, we've been using the same one.
Right, okay. It's, okay, thank you. Any public comment on this? No, all right, thank you. Next, discussion on traffic control devices on South Bay Shore Drive.
And Vice Mayor and Commissioners, again, we sent out a notice to all the 27 properties on South Bay Shore inquiring about specifically just about the traffic control devices or speed humps, speed tables received. I think in the end, a total of 7. I think the list here might show 6, but I think of it, we received 7, 1 really opposed and, oh, there's 7 here, I'm sorry, 6, yeah. Yes, and 1 that was a no, I'm sorry, yeah, 1 no, 5 yeses. 1 that still would prefer to remove the stop sign on 140th at Bay Shore. We did receive a quote for potentially installing speed humps and on South Bay Shore between 140th and Island Drive, and just received that yesterday. And I believe I put in the memo here that an estimated cost of $7,500 to install 2 of them.
Yes.
And that was actually before we received, that was my estimate. And the estimate we did receive from company Mended Asphalt and Concrete Services is $7,600 to
Oh, wow.
install 2 of them. And they give the specifications of them. I just received them, so I didn't provide copies, but we'll provide you copies. And but that's what they've provided. The exact locations will be, we're still determining the exact, but clearly they will not be in front of anyone's driveway. Their recommendation when they went out there preliminarily to determine the length of the speed tables and even the height, they really are speed tables, 3.5 inch inclines and declines, 7 feet platform, so 7 feet long and 3.5 inches tall. So it'll, if you're driving it over, 40 miles an hour, it's going to impact your vehicle. Really, the advice would be not to do that, to drive over that. Realistically, the speed limit over those will be 15 miles an hour to go over those speed tables, but a minimum of 2 or 2 of them, but precisely is what they will go back out and determine the exact location, but again, not in front of any driveways and likely at intermittent levels shortly after you enter or turn onto South Bay Shore, and then a certain distance after. There is the possibility, or my thought was if they recommended a 3rd one, I'm not sure if that would really be necessary, but a minimum of 2 throughout on the street should we proceed with these. We are also looking for a 2nd quote, but this is what we received so far. But we would actually look to get 3 quotes, but we received 1 so far.
Well, they're a captive audience once they make that turn, so probably 2 is.
I wouldn't
Good enough.
suggest 2.
So are we actually now creating a situation where people are just gonna go up to Virginia Avenue and cut through?
That was the other. I asked some of the residents on Virginia, have you noticed any cars cutting through? The 3 residents well, at least 2 that lived on the street, 1 that walks by, so that they rarely see cars cutting through there. But I mean, it's just anecdotal. It was only 3, 2 residents and then a 3rd one that walks on Bay Shore, Virginia, 140th Island Drive. That neighborhood is actually, quite a few people that walk through there. And the consensus from asking, just because we had the water line break there last week, we've spent a lot of time on.
Cut through there during that water break, so that's why I even was
And so
wondering
a
about
lot
that.
of residents, there's really quite a few, I did not hear, we probably spoke with about 30 residents in that area who drive on 140th on a regular basis, and not one of them, I'm sorry, I think we had one who said, yeah, it'd probably be better if you got rid of the stop signs at 140th and Bayshore. Most everybody else was in support of, or everyone else, of keeping the stop signs. Just about everybody was in support of the speed tables, but none of them, other than the survey that we did, none of the ones that we spoke with when we were there for the water break lived on South Bayshore. So it
Okay.
is
Yeah.
a little different when you don't live on there.
Well, I live on a relatively short street. I have 2 stop signs to get to my, I never thought twice about it. I mean, there's cross streets. So,
No, and even yesterday, we were there with one of our deputy sheriffs, and we were noticing cars just driving through the stop signs, particularly on Parsley Bayshore at 140th. Cars were just making turns without stopping, and it's just where people are in a hurry to get to where just takes a few seconds. I understand if you have to make 8 stop sign stops, you've added, 30 seconds to your commute. But just my thoughts.
okay.
I do like the idea of tables instead of speed bumps, because like the ones on Madeira Way, you have such a difference in what people do when they approach them, and you have people hitting their brakes and screeching tires because they don't see it in time. And it's the one on the west side is kind of too close to the intersection. So if you're pulling out of Municipal Drive there, it's
confusing. too.
yeah.
People think, I think you're stopping for me
Yes.
when you're not.
Right. So it's.
I pull out anyway. But
And I
yeah.
did notice, I did observe, and I didn't mention it last time, there is a speed hump on 147th near First Street East. So not even in this area, but in a completely different street that I had totally forgotten about until I
Really?
was looking at a property.
Oh,
But it is an actual.
right.
It's not really, it's like an elongated speed hump. It's not really a table, but it does slow you down on 147th, and I'm not sure.
Right, because
I
that's
mean,
where everyone who cuts, so they don't have to get off on Gulf Boulevard.
Correct,
cuts
they cut through,
there.
yeah, they were
So,
cutting through there either to
yeah.
get to Bayshore, get to First Street.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that we already have that one in the city as well as the
I think
speed.
there's a couple of them on 147th.
There might be a couple,
Yeah.
right? But I just didn't mention that last, when we've had these discussions, that we actually already have some throughout the city, just a
Yep.
few. In addition to the speed bumps on Madeira Way and right out here on Rex Place as well.
Madeira Way did have some different types of bumps before that it slowed people down, but they didn't stop for them. So that was much better than what we have now.
What
I give you a
tall are
third
those?
point.
Those seem
These are
unusually
tall.
tall. the
They are.
ones.
Mhm.
If you go over that on a regular compact car at 30 miles an hour, you'll feel it. I mean. And they are a little bit, especially the one right at Municipal Drive is a little awkward, as you pointed out. It's like, do the vehicles on Madeira Way have to stop or not, or who has the right of way?
Right,
It is a little awkward.
yeah. Did we put those, I mean,
I
did
don't
the
know who
Cambria ask for
decided.
those or I don't even know how those, I knew we had something there,
Right.
but they were pretty obnoxious, those bumps. They were pretty steep,
They were.
but they
Yes, but
weren't long
you
or
could.
wide, I
You could
guess.
carry some speed through it. You
Yeah.
didn't stop. Here, you've got people that go up and stop and slowly
Because they're
bump
scary. looking.
across.
Yeah,
And then other people don't really seem to see them, and then they hit them, and then they're shocked and they slam on the brakes and they're sliding, and it just doesn't. It's not.
quit
doesn't
cutting
look
through there,
comfortable for anybody.
folks.
Yeah.
That's what we want, right? We don't want people cutting through there. So that's the purpose of it.
Yeah, but if you live back here, that is your path. So it's, yeah, we don't want people cutting through. Save it for us.
So you remember all the talk about the 3-day workshop that the city had 20 years ago with our master plan and blah, 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 blah?
Mhm.
That place, we were shutting that street off completely and just making it
Right,
a,
make it a pedestrian
Yeah.
walkway.
but then the post office,
Yep. Thank you for not doing that.
oh, it's coming. All right.
So we will get 2 more quotes to comply with our purchasing ordinance, but just wanted to give, this is where we are, and I don't imagine it'll be significantly different than
And
this
maybe
quote.
just because we haven't heard anybody come up
Yeah.
and talk about it from that street, maybe alert those folks that we're voting on this and these are
Yeah.
may
Well, we
you know,
did-
may or may not
Yeah,
go
did
in.
we did include in the reminder that the commission did adopt the ordinance on first reading, lowering the speed limit from
Okay.
25 to 15, but the second notice was stating that this is a possibility, so please let us know, and we alerted them that the meetings are first and
Okay.
when the commission meetings take place.
Well, 7 people were involved enough to give an opinion and the majority of them want the tables and I've been,
Sure. Had one
we heard
question.
the people sit here the last time and say, please
Yeah,
do
they were,
something. I
right.
mean, so we've heard from a couple of people on that street. So, I mean, I'm in favor of it. If the people who live on the street, I just don't, hope it doesn't snowball into now speed bumps on Virginia and stuff like, I mean, if it does, it does, but
And are we okay with the fire truck?
we have a fire truck.
I think it's a
He
reluctantly.
is smiling, so he's not, yeah.
You could- It's never easy, and I think I've said this before, I've never been anywhere there was a unanimous support for it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not going, it doesn't, does it add a second or two to the response? A speed table, likely no, if it was a speed hump, it just depends, but they're not popular among fire departments.
Right.
Leave it at that.
Well, is it the consensus? We go ahead with the speed bumps as long as the people are notified and,
Sure, sounds good to me.
okay,
I think we have vote on it the next
or speed
100.
tables.
Speed tables.
Okay, I'm ready to, so. Okay, next discussion is the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Fun.
You have in the packet, Vice Mayor and Commissioners, of a memo from Andrew regarding how a little bit of the background on the funding that we've received from the American Rescue Plan Act and as part of the longer bill, the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. So
Okay,
we received $1,077,086 in the current fiscal year, and we are expected to receive the same amount in the second year. And again, to address the issues pertaining to the impacts of COVID on our city. So we have the final rule that was issued recently from the U.S. Treasury Department. And Andrew, if you have anything, really, Andrew put this together.
Sure, yeah.
yeah,
The great news scenario is, well, before when we were going through the budgeting process, I put together a revenue loss calculation that showed that we had sufficient revenue loss to cover the money we had. Now then the Treasury, US Treasury issued its final rule, it didn't even matter. They made me waste my time. They said, okay, for all these NEUs, which is non-entitlement units, which based on population and the city of Madeira Beach is a non-entitlement unit, there's a blanket threshold of $10 million. So anything up to $10 million, we're going to assume that you've incurred revenue loss and you can use up to $10 million or the greater of 10 million or your revenue loss calculation for lost revenue. And lost revenue can be used on what's called government services. And that is extremely wide ranging. So there's very few limitations on that. And I think the memo outlines them, but nothing that you really need to be concerned about. So we we can't reduce our millage in the budgeting process and say, let's reduce by a mill because we're just going to use ARPA funds to offset that. Can't do that. You can't deposit into pension funds. We don't really have those anyways. No defined benefit pension plans. We can't just use it and say, let's just pay off future debt service, settlements, judgments, and then there's other just general restrictions. So we can't say, hey, any businesses that have been fined for mask mandates, let's pay the fine for them. If it's
Right.
based on, CDC guidelines, if we're going counter to that. So again, those are very narrow in scope. I don't think we have anything to worry about. So generally, and in my memo, I did provide a number of like examples that were given, and then some Treasury kind of Q&A based on public comment that they received. But it's pretty wide open. So different governments are handling it different ways. Some of my clients are just kind of sitting tight and saying, we've got until December 2024 to obligate it, 2026 to spend it. Others are saying, I've got these 7 projects, let's move forward with those. The only thing I need to know is, for a couple things, budgeting purposes, how we want to handle that. We did budget it as revenue because we could use it in the current fiscal year on just about anything. So we can to pay personnel operating costs for a number of departments. But if we wanted to allocate it to specific projects based on your wishes, we can certainly do that. I just need to know, not only for budgeting, but also for reporting purposes. We've got a report that's going to be due in April. And any money that we do allocate for ARPA, from the ARPA proceeds and spend, there's various categories. And we just got to determine, okay, here's what we're spending it on, or here's what we have spent it on. And I got to put it in the right category in the online report submission to the US Treasury. So we can do absolutely nothing. We can hang on to it. We can.
Oh, no, we're going to have some fun with that. I'm not, no, this is one of the few fun things that we get to do up here when we,
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
is,
I'd like some input.
this
I
is
mean,
like the
obviously,
commission
when
arts
people-
and crafts right now.
It
You
is
can-
is
You're
fun,
at your arts
yeah,
and
this is the
crafts
good
table.
part.
You've got your sticky glue. You can just play around, do what you want. There's really no restrictions. Besides what
Right.
I've mentioned, correct.
Right.
You can't use it to offset a reduction in your net tax revenue deposit, as
Yeah.
Andrew stated, pension funds, debt service, settlements, judgments, or other general restrictions, such as helping businesses that may have incurred a fine for not following certain vaccine requirements, et cetera. So, but as Andrew stated, it's pretty wide open, and we listed some examples in the agenda item related either to infrastructure, recreation, public safety, economic development, tourism, or other. I mean, there's some examples in here of what it could be used for. The mayor provided some as well, such as potentially related to the parking garage, a traffic light at 130th and Gulf Boulevard, repaving Johns Pass parking lot, dredging, lengthening the jetty at Johns Pass, stormwater as is listed in here. So some of the same ones that are listed in here as stormwater enhancement, sidewalks, roadway improvements, sanitation or public works structures, parking enhancements, garage wayfinding, signage, structures like a public works structure. I think I've mentioned before, we do have equipment that's at the marina that is out in the open. Of course, we've had a presentation about the possibility of a hydra at the marina. But I mean, there are various projects, structures, specifically and other needs that this could be used on, and that's for all of you.
In your FY22 budget, we did budget for this revenue. We just didn't budget any
Expense.
expenditures because we didn't know what they were.
Right.
So if you all decide we want to do these 1, 2, or 6 projects and we want to get them done or at least started in FY22, we can just do a budget amendment to budget those expenditures, and we've already got the revenue there to support it.
Okay, so you had a couple of examples, or I'm not sure if the examples are just options, whether for like nonprofits that have lost money due to COVID. Something like that would be your Coast Guard auxiliary that had to close because they couldn't have classes. So that's possible that money, if there's any future money given to them, could come from this, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know, are there any other groups like that? I believe some cities have are allowed to give like bonuses to teachers and things like that. And I'm not recommending that, but is there something on your fund list that we're giving back to somebody who deserves it?
Everything's on the table. There is
Not
a
that
separate eligibility item or separate category called premium pay. So if you're considered an essential worker, providing,
Don't go there. That was
But
not
the-
a pretty.
No, I mean, but that is an example of
it's
what
just,
other
no.
cities
it's just
did,
an
yeah.
example, right?
Yeah.
But if you wanted to
To
dole
follow
out,
up the
if you wanted to
teachers.
dole out bonuses to teachers, that would qualify under revenue loss. There's not other.
Right.
But again, all of our money qualifies under revenue loss. So you can literally do with it as you wish, except those exceptions that we had listed.
And the nonprofit example that you gave, the Coast Guard Auxiliary, I mean, that quite a few cities have done that throughout the country. The Madeira Beach being fairly small, we do have very few organizations like that here. I mean, the
Right.
Coast Guard's a perfect example, but we really are so small, we don't have any other, or if we do, I'm not aware. I mean, we have essentially 2 churches or 2 faith-based organizations. There's an Elks, American Legion, Masonic Temple, VFW. But in terms of, and those aren't real, I mean, are those social service they're not for profit, but they're kind of a little bit more fraternal, civic type organizations. So we really very limited. And of course, we have several hundred businesses that, between Johns Pass along Gulf Boulevard along 150th, but that's the makeup. I don't, did we have a lot of our residents that, struggled to pay rent or pay mortgage? I mean,
Well, and also
Yeah.
be aware that Pinellas County to receive 175 million of ARPA proceeds. They also have the ERA 1, ERA 2. That's the Emergency Rental Assistance Program.
thank you.
That's eligible for all residents in Pinellas County that can apply to that. So there are social programs available for both individuals and businesses and nonprofits alike. So those are already in play.
Yeah,
But again, you've got options.
Yep, we do. Do we just want to, I mean, I like the ideas here. I think we need to add Patriots Park, don't you?
Yes, of course.
Kickstart that because that's been on the books for a
Yeah.
long, long time.
Yeah,
Be nice to get some of the older projects that
but I had a talk with the city manager on it, so
okay,
I'm kind of putting it on hold, I think, for now.
okay. But I mean, we've got a lot of time
Yeah,
to spend it, so
That's true.
we
that's
could
true.
earmark it.
Yes,
And I do like the idea of helping out our little Coast Guard Auxiliary building there. They were absolutely thrilled and they saved lives, and their training is, I'd love to see that happening again with them, so. So that's the fun part. I guess everyone should be thinking of, yeah, obviously we could, yeah, we could spend it all without the mayor and
Yeah.
Commissioner Andrews, right? Let's make this, but no, we're not gonna do that. I mean, obviously, we need their input. I'd love to maybe do a poll of our
We could,
residents.
yes, and
say,
other
"Hey,
cities
what
have
do you
done that.
think?" Or,
Yeah.
or maybe we give them
Some ideas
some
and then
ideas
also
and
leave it
say,
open.
where do you want it to go to?
And while you're at it, don't forget, you also have $383,544 of BP settlement proceeds that remain unexpended.
Yes. I know.
Wow, talk about going back and, sorry. going
I
back in
know,
time.
I know. And I think we have some other little funds hanging out there with little bits and pieces, and I'd like to see that eventually all get cleaned up. And, I know you would too.
I could see you all salivating over there.
Well, no, I just think I think it's great. I think it's fun. I think we can do some good for Madeira and have some, I like the idea of the signage. We've been talking about banners for our bridge forever. We never did do it. That was one of the first things I voted on up here
Well,
2 years
yeah,
ago.
Apparently, we're waiting for the,
The
apparently. and we'll-
brackets
yeah,
that
the-
disappeared,
right.
yeah.
But Duke Energy needs apparently, and we'll follow up, apparently they were going to change the actual pole on the bridge, but between Duke Energy and FDOT, we need to get that resolved.
And I don't want to overstate the obvious, but just know it's a major project that requires ongoing maintenance activities. These funds will deplete
Right.
Yeah, within.
over time. So if there is a particular project or projects that do require an ongoing funding source, we just have to be cognizant of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what really, we kind of title this as kind of capital type projects, because
Right.
usually, yeah, versus operating expenses. So, for example, yeah, like even a vehicle that just outright purchase of a vehicle, or, concession stand building, just to, if we were to tear that and build a new one, something that's a little bit better, better quality and works better than what's currently there. Because I think it's ground
Talking
level.
about Archibald? You're not talking
No,
about
right over here
Archibald.
at Rock Park, the
Oh,
little
oh,
concession
oh.
stand. Yeah. So
Is
it's not,
is that
not in the best
original?
shape.
Did we have that built when this place was built, or did we just kind of spruce it up a little bit?
I think it was built after the fact. Jay was it-
Okay.
I think it was built after, but when I toured it, I was kind of surprised how it was built.
You guys have a couple hours to talk about this?
Yeah,
No, it was
2 minutes.
built with the project. My understanding, there's a code. It's built to standards, basically minimum standards of occupation. It doesn't include the number of people in the field, includes the stands and whatever else. Long story short, there's a kitchen that we can't cook in because none of it is, there's no smooth walls, smooth ceiling, there's no floor drain, none of that stuff. It just has a hand washing sink. There's storage that is a very tiny closet, and there are 2 single restrooms. Our league at the time had 86 children in it. Now it has over 300 in it. And we have King of the Beach and college tournaments and everything else. So
No,
it could use some love
Yeah.
if,
it's no longer adequate for the usage of the.
but it was built with this.
with
Oh,
the-
it was,
Yes.
okay. I remember we had something out there before this was built. I couldn't remember
Yeah,
what.
it was built in the Rex. There was, I believe there was a concession.
So are
stand
those the
part of
only
it.
2 bathrooms other than the ones in the
Yeah,
rec center building?
yes, yeah,
We opened two on the backside of the rec center and then the 2 upstairs here,
yeah, right.
but then it turns into a,
Well, then the people have to walk all the way over here or walk all the way there.
Correct, right.
All right, well,
anyway.
Thanks, Jay.
those college girls aren't gonna put up with that much longer. Who come out here and,
Just be coming over, I think Jay and I haven't spoken, but probably these will be specific to the players. So,
Right.
And we may mark, as just direct them to come here and the general public to go to the concession stand and if to the rec center, just to make it a little easier for the players. Another that I had shared with the commission recently were the little structure at John's Pass, the Visitor Information Center that currently the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber operates, and we have an agreement. And so they've struggled to have staff, the issue of whether an information building is still necessary is the discussions I've had with the executive director, we need to go to a different model. And so these types of funds could be used for something, an alternative type of information, whether it's a kiosk or something interactive or something that would not require staffing. And that would be again, a capital cost that this could fund. So just, again, ideas that we're, tossing out that for you to think of, but, tourism, economic development, again, public safety infrastructure, think of broad categories and then what you think might be the best use of the funding. So that's why we broke it out in
Right.
those categories for you.
well, that'll be fun. We gotta continue the conversation maybe on the next. But I'm gonna come ready with maybe my 3 favorite things or just cross out a few and maybe we can just narrow it down. We should probably add to that discussion the BP money and
Yeah, sure.
okay. And our final discussion point is the 4-year 2023 federal community project funding.
So your request is to federal funding. So on a different level, what would be the commission's kind of desires for what should we request from our federal delegation in terms of these community projects? And we've used them made requests for roadway improvements, the dredging at Johns Pass, and the beach groins maintenance and replacement or improvement. So we are, for the second consecutive year, been requested to submit these types of funding for projects. So that's what is before you, to kind of similar to the previous agenda item.
Right.
Or what do you think, the commission should we look to support? There will be a Zoom meeting this Monday. The agenda item says that it was Friday. It's on Monday with representatives from Congressman Christ's office. They will provide some additional details as well as the process for fiscal 23. The information identifies fiscal 22 because they didn't have the details for fiscal 23 yet.
Okay.
So this would be for the next federal fiscal year. What types of projects should we request? And
So what's a school of thought? Because we're requesting like 3 big things already, right? Do we throw everything out there and see what sticks?
we can't, I
Or-
think they will likely want some specificity in terms of maybe to rank your projects. It's very competitive from what I've been told, and it's not a guarantee, and they may look for some matching as well, which is coming out of the state as well. What can you match? And when I spoke with our lobbyist yesterday, he said that they're about to go into the budget discussions, and the funding that we've requested at the state level will likely have a match.
Yes.
So if they give us 800,000, well, I don't think we have anything that's 1.6 million, but a little over 1.2 million, then they will provide 600,000, you'll match the other 600.
And so we're hoping that we can get the other 600 from the federal government and pay for projects
Yes.
completely. Okay,
Yes, possibly. Yes, that's allowable,
okay,
but, or from us, but yeah. So this is really because this is another opportunity that's been provided to us. I think it's something we should pursue, and
well, we've got half the money for the beach groins from the state,
Mhm.
right?
yes.
So let's see if we can get the other half from the federal government. I mean, our beach is our
Mhm.
main focus here. That's why people come here. Let's keep that pristine and wide and as nice as we can. So I mean, I totally agree with that one.
Do we know where we stand on the boardwalk on Giants Pass? Is that something that
Yeah,
that was supposed to
wasn't there an
it's supposed
inspection or
to-
something we
it
were
was
gonna?
supposed to come up beginning of this year sometime. I don't know if this is too late for that, or I mean, when
No, I
you
mean,
look
this
at,
is still open but again, for next federal fiscal year is July 1, sorry. I'm sorry, October 1. Same as ours.
Oh, okay.
The state is July 1.
So do we know that we have to replace anything on the pass or on the boardwalk or not yet?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
It's-
either.
We can inquire. I haven't
Megan would
seen
know.
anything.
I think
but
we
some
okayed
things-
for an inspection of it.
Okay.
And that
We'll
might have
find
been
out.
just the pilings underneath or something, but that's a good one.
Because I think John's Pass is, for
Another,
the whole county, it's pretty important.
right.
It's the second most popular destination in Pinellas County.
I don't know, do they fund parking garages?
Can always be included.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm just
that
thinking of
came-
the big things out there. And then looking at these categories, obviously, we don't really supply defense. I kind of like the idea of some law enforcement assistance. I don't know how much, I mean, how we're doing lately. Military construction, we don't do that, Going through here, I was just marking through things that we don't do or we don't supply because we're a municipality, but I like the transportation idea of
Because
really to help alleviate some of the parking problems. If we could offer.
and then that falls under transportation.
Right.
I mean, alternative forms of, potentially, the group, I think it's led by Forward Pinellas for the water transportation and that's coming back up again as I'm attending a meeting tomorrow on that. But that could be part of the transportation funding as well. As well as parking garages you mentioned, but we're not looking for a new bridge, for example.
Right.
Not that we would, but I think that would be DOT. But in terms, we don't have any small street bridges but it could be for like seawall. If we had a massive seawall issue, that could be a community funded project, but
I was just thinking of, for transportation, I was just thinking of ways to alleviate some of the traffic. Like, you weren't here, but one year we helped kickstart a ferry service that was going to
Correct,
stop
yeah.
at various places.
And that's what
around.
the discussion is for tomorrow. the
I
fair-
think that
the
is
water
a
taxi.
terrific idea. Not that I want to totally subsidize the thing, but
Well, that's
it
kinda how it
was-
ended up,
yeah.
I think, because the
Well,
same when I was up
it-
north.
It was just, we helped them for one year and then we pulled the funds out after this, they bought a boat, right? I didn't think that was right, but, so it ended up having to sell the thing, at a loss. And
No, I was here when
You were
that
here when-
started up north, but yeah, and it was, I think the novelty then
But-
wore off with,
City of Tampa somehow, they're going gangbusters.
Well,
They're
the-
starting that pirate ship. I used to watch it from my office, constantly full, people going all up and down the.
well, they've
Riverwalk. I don't
expanded,
know.
I think their riverfront is really what's helped where you can go from one
Right,
part of the river to the other, and certainly going to hockey games helps.
yeah.
So they,
But
done
I'm
well
just
with it.
trying to get people from the condos to Publix and Winn-Dixie and back, if we could build some docks or what, if we could, how nice would it be for a visitor to come here and not have to get a car?
Yeah.
Right? Because they could jump on the water taxi or just Uber it really, but I'm just trying to get cars off the road. Everyone's concerned about it. We're about to go into spring break and we're going to hear about it again. Especially if they keep closing lanes,
they're almost finished with
but
Yeah,
famous
I
last
just,
words.
The water taxi needs to be better than what we had before. It's
yeah,
'cause
it
there
really needs to
never
kick
had-
off and be, yeah,
There was
exactly.
never anybody on it other than the two people that ran it. So I don't.
Well, we need to promote it or just even,
Well, really, it would have been, I know the Publix hasn't been there very, very long. I don't think it's been there more than a decade, right?
what, the Publix?
On the other, right. Is
been
it
there
fairly new?
forever.
It's newer, but has it been renovated recently? or-
Yes.
Yes.
Right, they remodeled it. Would have been
It
nice,
used to be a small Publix and a strip mall. They just took it over.
would have been
and then-
nice if they went vertical and then you would have had parking deck or that, then you could accommodate. That's where you would park and then take
And then take the,
the ferry over here or water taxi, et cetera.
Right.
But, because right now, where will, particularly your day trippers, where will they park? Well, on a Saturday and Sunday, I guess they could park at the school if the school would have agreed to do that, then they could, so that would alleviate cars coming
right,
across the causeway here. But, so those are I know when I was up north, that was where are we gonna park? We're gonna promote the water taxi, but where are we going
to
to
park the
park
people,
folks?
right.
Well, there were 2 parking garages that were used for that. But over time, as I said, I think everybody was excited. And then after about a year, the excitement wore off and it just didn't, ridership tremendously decreased. Even, trolleys, and I've discussed with the second trolley service here, not the PSTA, but the BITE, about using, and she's amenable to doing that, but where do we park vehicles? That's the
Right.
issue. Again, trying to keep them off. I mean, not, we're not, we're
Well, you're
looking for
thinking day
alternative.
trippers. I'm thinking
Yeah.
people that fly in and take it.
Correct, yeah, and that's
Pick up
right.
a rental car and drive around. I
Well, it
mean,
would be interesting to know what percent, how many do we have? What percentage? I think it is pretty high.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
yeah.
yes, it is. It is.
So, but it's both. I mean, but yeah, you could certainly, a transportation funding, but we would have to be somewhat specific
Right.
as to what we would be looking for. And again, probably we can have our own, but there's certainly PSTA and Forward Pinellas are looking specifically at the water taxi and how that could come back. And that would be between Clearwater, Indian Rocks, Madeira, and St. Pete Beach. So specifically at John's Pass is what the narratives that I've read so far.
Okay.
So yeah, think of, I mean, some community projects and based on that list, and we can discuss further.
Yeah, because like I said, I went through and just crossed out stuff. I've got drainage written real big here by the.
Then that could be, yeah, under the environmental, I mean, we can
Right.
for stormwater projects, but we would have to identify specific streets and areas and where that would take place.
We got 2,000 residents out there that'll tell you
Okay,
where that, where that is, so, okay. So how do we want to handle this, folks? Do we want to just kind of rank them or come back, discuss it again with the full commission
I think it
and,
should be discussed.
Yeah.
Everybody. Yeah.
but,
And I'll know more on Monday as well, a little bit more of the specifics, and I'll report back to the five of you what that is.
Yeah, I think I'd like to go away and rank them. and
yeah,
then
or
have
just
the
pick your
next
top
meeting.
three
Yep.
or something to that effect, so we can just zero in on it. And although your memo's got the big ones on it,
Mhm.
if we can get the, how come I thought that John's Pass dredging was kind of
I don't know how that works.
sorted out? Was it just
It
a
is-
study being done?
Well, the study has been done.
Okay, and
then
we
the
got it.
Right, and the county has provided their input as well. And the dredging that will, likely will happen is a little bit further west of where an additional part of the dredging should occur. So more on the east side of the bridge. Whereas what the county is planning is to the west of the bridge. So it's not including the sand that's accumulating on the north side of the pass, but east of the bridge. To give, so, and the conversations that have occurred with the county have, again, just been a little bit further west. And the county also is a little bit hesitant about what, any long-term solutions. One that has been proposed is to expand or build a jetty.
Lengthen our
Lengthen
jetty on
the
our.
seawall jetty farther out, but the science and the study, what I've seen are a little bit inconclusive as to whether that likely would alleviate the deposit of sand east of the bridge, but that may have negative impacts to the south, to Treasure Island and parts of St. Pete Beach, where sand would erode away from there due to the jetty. But I mean, we don't, that's just the science.
Treasure
and the
Island has
study.
the widest beach I've ever
I'm
seen.
just- I agree,
Anyone
but
needs to capture sand. And I read in that report where they're taking our sand and giving it to Sunset Beach.
it's going, yeah, it's going other, what gets dredged out of here will go to replenish and renourish to the north and a little bit to the south.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
that's-
as long as they take the sand, let's help somebody
Mhm,
else out
yeah.
who needs it, right?
Right. No,
But
and
we
they're
need
clear
the sand taken out
on
in the
east-
past. Yeah,
Yes,
on the
that's
east
what,
side. And that wasn't
That's
Not
not
part of-
exactly what the county
What
is.
we need.
Just two different, I think, opinions on the full impact of the sand accumulating in the pass and east of the bridge. and
Okay.
Mainly to the north side of the pass, the waterway of John's Pass, which is
If we want to
impacting,
preserve our fishing village,
Right.
we need some fishing boats. And if it all sands in, we're not going to
We're
have
gonna-
fishing boats and
correct.
dolphin boats.
right, and it impacts obviously our economy and
Right. And long-term businesses that have been here forever and good citizens, so, well,
so the reason. for the-
definitely one of the, yeah, okay. I mean, that almost sounds like a federal project.
Well, and that's why one of them
Not
on
my
here for
county.
under environment is through the Army Corps of Engineers, and that would be that's their area.
Wheelhouse,
So,
yeah.
right, that's where, they're the ones that would do that work or coordinate to do that job because they're responsible for the navigable waterway. And we believe a little bit beyond the area that is navigable, if that's the right term.
Right. Okay,
Yeah, the problem with the east of the bridge is as it narrows down, the current goes faster. And so underpowered sailboats and things like that are starting to have problems at certain times. So yeah, everything they talked about was out in the Gulf and the southward flow. But if we have to do the east ourselves or come up with better, we still need to do that.
agreed. And I don't think that BP money is gonna be, make a dent in it.
Are-
And then there was a big discussion how this isn't even our sand to move. Right? So he says, that's not, you can't just get in there and move that sand.
That's part of it.
All right, well, this is a discussion for the whole group, so. All right, so let's narrow down to 5 main things, I guess, and we'll.
Sure.
If you could pass it on to our colleagues, so we can discuss this again, but that's back on the, I guess, the next workshop along with the performance appraisals. Anybody got anything?
Yep, before
add?
we go, have you guys seen I think there was something on TV about the Pinellas County Sheriff. They've come up with a system for removing some of the derelict boats. They worked with the state and they came up with a 21-day, they put something on the boat and the person who owns the boat can request a hearing and discuss the boat removal or why it should be there. And they have a list. They were up in Tarpon Springs and they were talking about it, but they had a picture of the boat at Madeira Beach that was right up against the school. So
That's not Madeira Beach, by the way. Everyone's telling me, what are we gonna do about the boats? But I said,
Okay.
we don't have them. They're
Right.
on someone else's property. I'm happy to, I'd like to see them gone, obviously, but I'm just saying.
I
But
think
the-
that's the boat that they had just as you went over the bridge by Bay Pines. It was in the
Right.
water there.
Yes.
They show that, but
They
they did
did.
show some boats out here too.
But they said they are going to remove that one with the picture. He said, we're going to remove the ones that are in the pictures.
Oh,
So
good.
they are removing that one. They said they are working with FWC a little bit, but this way, this is a much shorter process. They have the 21 days. If nobody comes back and says anything, they don't have to try to search out who actually owns the boat. And they have enough money that they're going to remove like 30 other boats now. And so I don't know if there's something that it isn't our waterway, but if the city wants to
Right,
throw
we
some
need to
money
jump in on that.
and say, yeah, can you get rid of that one and that one and that one? And we throw in some money to help. Because they were talking about the one boat, it was like $5,000 to remove it. But at least they're going much faster than having to go through the state and do the, find the owner and, because they said they normally can't. But they came up with a process to do it in 21 days.
The latest that we received was that on Monday, they will be removing 6 boats from
Okay.
out here. And
Okay.
we're waiting to
that's
get some more
wonderful.
details tomorrow, but that was actually in an article today. And that they would be doing that on Monday, using a vendor to go in there, remove it and check for any of the environmental, make sure that it's not leaking any hazardous materials, which if the boat's been in the water for a long time, it may already have happened, but
It already.
but they're scheduling to do starting Monday, where again, I'll pass on some of the details, but that was the latest it's been provided to us. So,
Well, we need to throw them a party.
yes.
Keep them in our
Yeah.
area for a while.
Yeah,
Let's
so, I
let's
mean, if
buy
you-
those people lunch every day when they're in here.
Yeah, the sheriff was, I mean, they're using kind of general fund money to, I think it was 32 boats at an estimated cost of 160,000 or thereabouts to remove them. And they've gone through the regulatory process, but just to expedite it because they've been in the water so long. So, yeah, I thought about, I mean,
Yeah,
if there were other boats around here that we identified, we could, provide
right.
20 or 30,000 and the eyesore would be gone. But
Why would the
think-
school board let that boat sit there that long? Wouldn't you,
don't know.
wouldn't you? I'm floored.
But the
So-
article today did say, and again, we'll find out more tomorrow, that they will be, it was just off the Madeira Beach Marina. That's what the article, but maybe just off could be.
Oh, no, it's on the
It's
other side.
side of the
See,
waterway,
we
actually.
passed that
Right.
ordinance that moved everybody over there and out of our reach
Mhm.
is what happened.
So, well, the event that's scheduled for Memorial Day weekend, which is out there, they
Boat
might be,
stock.
yeah, they might be happy that, or I don't know, maybe not, maybe they like
There'll be even more boats.
more boats and hopefully they arrive and they take them, they don't leave them there, but I
Yeah,
guess it's
no,
a
no, no,
pretty
no. I'm
big
just-
event.
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of a big event. What a crazy event, so. Well, that's great news. I didn't see that article, so. I know they cleaned out that hurricane hole about 10 years ago. I don't know who did it, but it was quick and those boats were gone and I'm very happy about that. Now they're all just outside of it. So they must have put up a gate or anything. All right, we've reached the end of our agenda. Anybody have any comments or public comments about anything that we've discussed here tonight? All right, I guess this is the close of the meeting at 7:32 PM. Thank you.